What happens when the past you were so proud of suddenly becomes a source of deep shame? Today, we're jumping into Kazuo Ishiguro's incredible novel, An Artist of the Floating World. It's all about art, ambition, and the tough questions we face when the world we helped create turns around and judges us for it.
So, right out of the gate, we meet our narrator, Masuji Ono. He's an aging painter looking back on his life in post war Japan. And with this opening line, he immediately throws us a curveball. He suggests he's a big deal, only to instantly walk it back. Now, this isn't just him being humble. It's our very first clue that the story he's about to tell us is, well, it's a performance, and it might not be as straightforward as it seems.
And that question right there, that's the absolute heart of this novel. Ono is our only guide through his own history, but his memory is filtered through all these layers of pride, regret, and, a very human need to protect his own dignity. So the puzzle we have to solve together is, can we really trust his version of events? All right, let's dig in. Section 1, A Painter's Puzzling Past, the Unreliable Witness. You see, the key to this whole story is understanding not just what he's saying, but how he's saying it. Reino is a textbook example of an unreliable narrator. His whole story is peppered with phrases like, "I seem to recall," or "perhaps I am mistaken." It's not that he's outright lying, necessarily. It's more that his memory is incredibly convenient. He's constantly reshaping his past, leaving out the uncomfortable bits, all to paint a picture of himself that he can live with. And here's where it gets really clever. Throughout the book, Ono speaks directly to you. He pulls you in, making it feel like a very intimate, honest chat. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice he almost always does this when he's trying to justify something, like he's anticipating your judgment. It's a fascinating trick because it feels close, but it actually creates distance, reminding you that you're getting a carefully managed story, not the raw truth. Okay, Section 2, Art for Empire's Sake, the Rise of a Propagandist. So how did this artist get here in the first place? His journey is a really powerful look at how art and politics can get tangled up in some pretty dangerous ways. You can see this huge shift in Ono's work. He starts out painting the floating world, the pleasure districts, focusing on beautiful, kind of detached scenes. Think of his painting Complacency. But he gets restless. He wants his art to mean something more, to have a real impact. And that's what leads him to create these bold nationalist pieces like Eyes on the Horizon, which were all about promoting imperial pride. He essentially trades art for art's sake for art with a mission. Now, this change didn't just happen overnight. It was a conscious decision. He gets a mentor, a guy named Matsuda, who drills into him this idea that art shouldn't just be pretty, it should serve society. Ono completely buys into this, turns his back on his old style, and starts creating powerful propaganda for Japan's growing empire. And in his mind, he was doing a good thing. He was being a patriot. But the world Ono worked so hard to build up through his art, well, it was all about to come crashing down. And his reputation, his whole sense of self, was going to come down with it. After the war ends, the entire national mood just flips. The very ideas Ono had championed, that fierce nationalism and imperial pride, are now seen as the root cause of the country's devastation. What was once a source of honor becomes this deep collective shame. And Ono, as a very public face of that old ideology, suddenly finds himself on the wrong side of history. So how does a society deal with that kind of guilt? Well, we see two totally different paths. On one side, you have people like Yukio Noguchi, a composer who takes his own life as a final, extreme apology for his wartime work. And then you have Ono. He says he admires Noguchi's courage, but he never takes that kind of responsibility himself. Instead, he hesitates, he justifies, and he keeps polishing his memories to soften the edges of his own involvement. So, Section 4, Ghosts of the New Japan, The Reckoning. Back in the novel's present, which is the late 1940s, Ono has to navigate this new Japan, a country that looks at his past with a lot of suspicion and silent judgment. You really feel his isolation in these tense little conversations he has. When he runs into his old teacher, he feels this heavy judgment for, selling out pure art for politics. And with his own daughter, Setsuko, he's constantly on the defensive. She doesn't have to say much. Her silences and carefully chosen words are enough to remind him that his legacy is a problem in this new world. I mean, think about it. The very thing that once made him famous and influential is now the reason he's socially awkward, a potential embarrassment to his family. His fall from grace really hammers home a key point of the book. Public honor is incredibly fragile, and our identities are constantly being molded by the times we live in. Okay, last section, memory, guilt, and redemption, the echoes of the past. So what are we supposed to make of Ono's twisty, evasive story in the end? What is Ishiguro really trying to say about how we live with the past? The novel really leaves us with a few big ideas. First, that our memory isn't like a video recording. It's a story we're constantly editing to protect ourselves. Second, our identity isn't set in stone. It can change dramatically depending on the world around us. And finally, redemption is complicated. Ono never has some big, dramatic breakdown where he confesses everything. His journey is much quieter, a slow and maybe even incomplete acceptance of what he did. Ultimately, this story isn't just about a painter in post-war Japan. His struggle is something we can all relate to. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, when we look back on our own lives, our own mistakes and our triumphs, what story do we choose to tell? And how much of that story is really true?